For those who have just joined, good morning again. We will be starting at 11:05 so that folks can trickle in and settle down. We're just getting ready. We are expecting today about 100 some participant. We have participants from all sectors of the life, particularly from agriculture, including government officials, folks working in cold storage, farmers, agribusiness, and allied services. So we will be keeping this presentation very high level. We'll talk about technology used and things like that. But our goal would be to ensure that we are able to connect and explain what the work we are doing and what are the possibilities. So yeah, we'll start in about 60 seconds. All right, it's 11:05 and I want to get started. Good morning, everyone again. My name is Ruchit Garg and I'm founder of Harvesting. Hope you guys can hear me fine. Today, we will be talking about harvesting satellite data to improve the agriculture value chain. Just for housekeeping notes here, this is a short presentation of about 20 minutes. We are expecting 100 folks around in this webinar. This is getting recorded and also getting live telecasted on Facebook. We already have about 40 attendees and I hope that other folks can join as well. This is a mixed audience where we are expecting executives from agriculture input companies, government officials responsible for building and executing agriculture policies in India, as well as other entrepreneurs. So I welcome you again. If you have any question, please do ask these questions using Q&A section. We would try to answer as many of them during the live webinar. And if we are not able to take it online, we would follow up over the email. So if I may request Ishan to proceed to the next slide. This is me, Ruchit Garg, on the left. I'm the founder CEO of Harvesting, and with me today I have Ishan Kochar, geospatial data scientist with Harvesting. Next, please. So very briefly, what we are going to cover today, we will talk about basic background. Why do we need satellite data? What is the data-driven approach? We'll give an overview of what remote sensing is, and then talk about the work Harvesting team have been doing for past several years, followed by some demos and a specific last 10-15 minutes for Q&A. Next, please. Next. So, as you all know, probably that there are about 500 million small farm holder across the world. They are responsible for feeding 80% of the planet, but unfortunately, they are amongst the most underserved communities across the world. If you look closely, they are also amongst the one who are at the fundamental layer or the bottom layer of what drives multi-trillion-dollar market annually. And there is a stark contrast here. And when you open this hood and try to understand what is the problem here, we realize that there is one single problem, which if we try solving can make the system really a lot more efficient and effective. Next, please. So what we realized over last few years of working, that there is a massive data asymmetry between the farms and anyone else in the value chain. On one side, you have large banks, large insurance companies, governments, input companies who are willing and able willing to work with the farmers. But on the other side, it's been very, very hard for these farmers to avail these services. Uh, and all this, at the end of the day, falls to the availability of data. And why data? Why is it hard for farmers or for these companies to get the data? Because especially the small farm holders are far away and scattered. They are using legacy practices. They don't have systems in place, or the book of business in place, so that banks can decide how much loan they can be given. There's not much technology available until recently, which allows insurance companies to figure out who owns the farmland and how much damage is there. So at the end of the day, this is a data problem. As far as we see, it's our perspective that if the data is available at you know at readily and at an affordable price, then the equation between the farms and the farmer and anyone else in the value chain, we can improve a lot. Next, please. So with me here, as I've mentioned, we have senior scientist Ishan, who will walk us through what remote sensing is and what kind of work we have been doing. Uh, just to repeat again, we have a Q&A section, so that please do ask questions if you have one. We will try to answer those. Record keeping, again, housekeeping note, this session is getting recorded and live telecasted on Facebook as well. So go ahead, Ishan, and let's get started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'll just quickly brief you about the remote sensing satellite data, like what is it and how we are trying to bridge the gap between the smallholder farmers and the various other organizations who have been trying to work on agriculture. So very quickly, I'll just take you through the remote sensing or how the satellites data capture or what information do we have, because we have everybody we have heard of these remote sensing thing and satellite data, but what exactly we capture through it. So it's not just the Google Maps, what I think we already have in our mobiles. It's way more than that we have. So first thing, when we need to understand some very basic concepts of satellite data, what they provide, and know how we see things through the satellite data. So first thing which comes into mind is the pixels, or what is the resolution. Generally, we just oversimplify the thing that that's a high resolution thing, that's a low resolution thing. So just for for the sake of for all the audience, I've just put some pictures out here. This is somewhere in the world, because I got some data. Uh, as you can see, it's the same area captured by different satellites, but the pixel resolution or the spatial resolution is different. So at 10 meter, you can see a detailed farm information, whereas if you move towards 60 meter, it gets blurred. And then again, it's towards 120. Then at 250 meter, it's not possible to see the small farms out there. So it's really important to select the kind of data we'll be using to detect the small farms out there. So 250-meter thing can be useful to understand the scenario at a larger scale, but I think it will not be as useful if we are really working on the small farms up. And next important thing is, which comes into mind, the temporal resolution. So it's nothing, simply if you want to monitor, let's say agriculture, because we work on agriculture, you need to monitor a crop every few days or weeks. So then temporal result comes into the play of this entire remote sensing thing. So it's basically the same satellite revisiting the same area after a certain period of time. Let's say a satellite visits any area today, and it will visit the same area after, let's say, 16 days. So no, we'll be able to capture the crop cycle or crop growth after every 16 days. So that's really important when we know, when we select the data, when we bring the data into our system. Next important thing is the electromagnetic spectrum. I think if we have studied physics, so the electromagnetic spectrum is like the basic of remote sensing, because what we see through our eyes is just the RGB image or what, but more than RGB, there's also infrared, near infrared, then there's microwave. All these things come to, in the form of bands, and they form a satellite data. So there are different uses of different bands. Let's say for vegetation purpose, especially vegetation purpose, we rely on near infrared. Then there's red band also, it's useful in some kinds, and we can derive various matrices out of these bands, and which are really important, for us to understand the crop health. Yeah, and there are various organizations who have been capturing the data. Let's say in India, we have ISRO, then there's NASA, then there's Airbus, Planet. Well, there are various government organizations, and as well as there are many private players as well into the whole picture. So it really depends to, what kind of data we'll be using it, all, because everybody is capturing the same thing in different ways. So it's really important, to understand the spatial resolution, the temporal resolution, the spectral resolution. Well, these are the basic things which we need to keep in mind before we, make it into the real world use. And yes, and once we have all the data, we bring it into our own system, because uh, I would say the satellite data was into use like way back in 1950s, 60s. Primarily, it was used for military purpose. And as I mentioned, there's a Landsat mission started by NASA. Its first satellite was launched in 1971 or 72, and right now we have the same mission going on, and we have Landsat 8. So you can, trace back the same area. uh, let's say if we are using Landsat, we can monitor the same area way back till 1970s. So imagine the number of pixels we'll be having. And interestingly, we are now at a stage where we have, really interesting or good technologies, efficient technologies, where we can bring all the data into our system, and also we can communicate very easily. Internet is very helpful at this time, and if you want to convey any message, we have uh, various modes, not just the data coming in. And we are now at a time where we can also, convey our messages. So earlier, the data was there, but maybe the processing capacity was limited. So that's how the entire process, I would, in nutshell, the picture explains it well, that we have satellite data capturing, various portions of Earth, and then we also have, some sensors on ground, on the fields, which are really helpful to, calibrate the data, and then the data is captured, transferred to the, servers of the various organizations who have been capturing the data: ISRO, ESA, NASA, Planet Labs, many things. And then the data comes into our system, and, we process it, and ultimately, depending on the user, you can see it on your screen, because it's better to know. Lot of people don't understand the scattered data, so we bring it in the form of charts, graphs, or any useful. It's better to communicate the science in as simple ways as possible. So that's how this entire cycle explains the whole process. As I mentioned, like our intelligence engine, we call it agriculture intelligence engine. We have agroecological zones. Then we have elevation profile. We monitor crop health. Then we also bring into the system the soil moisture. Then we have weather data captured by various organizations. We bring in that into the picture. Then the various vegetation indexes, which are really useful to monitor the health index, and also the farm boundaries. So the entire it becomes different layers into the system. Again, like as I mentioned earlier, uh, we right now we are at a stage where processing powers really matter, and we have really good dynamic systems in place to bring in to process trillions of petabytes of data, and you know and present it in as simple way as possible. So this is the entire the basic structure of our intelligence engine, I would say. And what do we get out of it, that system? We provide we detect the crop, like what crop is it a wheat there, is it a rice there, or any crop. And we provide the acreage, like how much the crop area is being covered by that in particular region. Then we also monitor the crop health. We also provide the farm score. And we not only we have the capability to monitor the entire province, entire district, entire state. We have the capability to monitor the entire country, I would say. But that's up to the user, that what level they want to get the information. So as low as we can also monitor the farm, right? As smallest unit, I would say. And then this our information is also useful for supply chain at optimization. Very quickly, Ruchit, would you like to add anything up till now?
So this is great. Thank you so much, Ishan. So just to sort of recap, remote sensing satellite have been around for a long time. And what is happening is the technology of satellite is getting cheaper and better every day. Now we work with satellites which can even give us information up to 30 centimeter resolution. What that in theory means that we could, in theory, see the number plate of the car. Again, that data is not readily available when you work with private agencies such as Airbus. You have some of that data available on delayed methods, but it is available, and that allows us to uh, you know, provide the kind of analysis which Ishan is going to soon show as part of the demos. Maybe I can answer some questions now and give Ishan a little water break. And I see we have already some questions here. Um, so there's a question from Shilpa. What do you think has prevented these data gaps from being bridged so far? I think we answered this very briefly, that data has been there, but the infrastructure to process that data and present and communicate that data was not there. So now with more computing power, we are able to process this massive amount of data. We handle trillions of data points every day, and then present some of the reports Ishan is going to share soon. So these data points, these processing capabilities, and our ability to use this data and communicate back to the farms and the farmer have improved. And that is where we see ourselves in a unique opportunity where we could possibly help hundreds of millions of farmers using this technology. I'll take one more question before we go to the demos. Again, Shilpa asking, Is it possible to figure out soil moisture from the remotely sensed images? In short, yes. There are a lot of satellite today which allows us to monitor soil moisture. Again, depending on what kind of satellite we work with, you get different results. But we have seen data and worked with wherein in Netherlands, there is a team who work on it, and we can get very accurate data up to 10-meter resolution, which is very, very high resolution soil moisture data. Over to you, Ishan. We'll carry on with the demos, and hopefully, maybe after a few demos, we can take a small break. We give him a water break, and I'll answer some more questions.
Okay. Yeah, very quickly. Recently, this is a recent work wherein it's somewhere near Batinda, Punjab, where we were monitoring the, wheat crop, especially during the COVID. It's like it was a harvesting season, and on ground the government was really working to know the ground situation. So what exactly is happening and how the harvesting is happening. So this is just a small screenshot of that region where the orange color you see is the standing crop there, and just after few days it's turning towards yellow. It's not just for the demo purpose. I have shown it like here. And the small clusters, if you see, these are all the you know the residential areas, or these are small villages or some urban clusters there. So we are the color you have seen, you are able to see on your screen is the crop, standing crop there, and it's turning towards where it has been harvested. And similarly, this screenshot is from our work where we were working with some of our stakeholders in South Africa, where we were monitoring the fallow lands. Or this is really important to understand the economic potential of the farm. Not just that, it's also important that how uh, strategically we can use the land. If it's a agricultural land, it has a potential to grow crops, uh, and also assess the reasons why it has been abandoned or it has been turned to fallow. There are a number of reasons where it is deliberately farmers who left it temporarily fallow for some time, or there can be any reason. So through remote sensing, we can capture whether it's an active agriculture site or it's a like non-active, or for how much duration it has been left abandoned or it has been left fallow. So the temporal resolution, again, I would say the phenology of the crops comes into the picture. And similarly, as I mentioned earlier, we can monitor the crop health as low as accurate as at farm level. So have the farm boundaries. uh, there's another important index using the spectral information, we call it. There are a number of indexes out there. So the NDVI is like most popular in the scientific community who work on satellite data. It's normalized difference vegetation index. So it uses near infrared band and other bands. Uh, so the the thing is, if it gives you the numbers from -1 to 1, so 1 signifies the crop is healthy there, and if it is towards 0, it can be a bare land, or if it is like zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2, then that means there's some we need to monitor the crop. So we can also compare the NDVI values, let's say for the current season, and we can compare it with when the crop was in good condition. So we can get to know, and we can also identify that where exactly the crop is under stress, or it could be due to pest, or it could be due to drought. That's a different thing, but we can now identify the areas using satellite data. In nutshell, I would say. Yeah, this is really interesting. uh, Once we know the farms, We can monitor whether it's an active agricultural land or no. That gives additional point to the farm. How close that farm is to the water source, or what is the water source. uh, is it a rain fed, is it a groundwater, or it's using the canal water, or and how far is it from the market, and how many crops are grown into that in that particular farm. uh, how is the soil moisture, and like there are a number of things which come to bring this score to the it's really an interesting. I'll share the screenshot of this results out there. So now there are a number of factors, and we're still growing, evolving this indicator. So better, like higher the score and higher is the economic value of the farm. As you can see, the blue color on the, this is again also from one of our site we were working on, and including all the parameters, we calculated the economic potential of that farm, and the blue color represents the higher farm score. So you cannot visualize all the details, but interestingly, if you can see, if the size of the farm is large, that's, anyways, it gives an additional point. And this is exactly what this picture is trying to show, that if the size is less, then the potential of that farm, economic potential of that farm, is less. But it's just one case. There are other factors also which come into the picture when calculate the score of that farm. And these are some of the reports we published recently when we were monitoring the wheat crop before harvesting, and during, like how much the crop had been harvested till certain date. For different states we have been working with, and we were providing the inputs to the government institutions. Yeah, that's, I think, all.
Thank you so much, Ishan. So just to sort of little bit recap what Ishan mentioned. So we have ability to monitor farm from the satellite. We could go up to acre level if needed. We have done several work in different parts of the world. Ishan just shared South Africa example. We have worked on other parts of India, including, as you could see on the screen, we processed and published data for free online about how much wheat is standing in Haryana and Punjab and so forth. And what's interesting is that as far as we understand, we are able to process data every 10 days and publish, which allows, or at least whoever wanted to leverage this data, to understand how the wheat growth is growing. So if you see from the financial perspective, if that's $1 billion crop standing on the farms, and having more accurate information of how the production is growing of the wheat could help the stakeholder figure out the storage needed, the transportation needed, the warehousing capability needed, and so on and so forth. And what we have done is made it easier for stakeholders to see the data. Report we have here is only for the wheat, but we are capable to do this monitoring in almost all states in India or other parts of the world. And we can monitor almost all major crops using satellite data. Today we have published, this report is available for free online. This is a partial report. If you go to harvesting.co and you will see a reports section, you can download those for free. We have published data up to the district level, I believe, and but we have capability to even get you the production data up to even the farm level. So with that, let me take some questions and try to answer them. So I'm just looking at the questionnaires here. So there are a couple of questions which have been raised about how this data can help farmers. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, like everyone else, we are working from the home and I have kids around, so they were making noise. Sorry about that. So there are a couple of questions here which talks about how does a farmer can get this data. So idea here is what the way we see the world is, first and foremost, it's important to identify and get the data most closest to the ground truth data. That when you make that data available to stakeholders, either it is government or input companies or others, then the benefits we hope that would pass on to farmers. Currently there are no good ways to directly take the data and put it to the farmers, because even if I say to the farmer in India, especially a small farmer in India, that, hey, your soil moisture is, you know, 0.2 something, he doesn't know how to interpret it. So what we would need is, our goal is to put that data available to the experts and companies who can then leverage that data and provide more precise benefit to the farmer. Let me go to the next question. So Varun asks, could you use this technology in conjunction with government to solve the stubble burning post harvesting? We can definitely help governments, and I would request if there are government officials to, you know, reach out to us, and if they need any assistance from us. From remote sensing, there are very well used techniques which allows us to monitor, identify, measure and monitor such cases. And that can be used to not only track where this is happening, but also incentivize farmers to not do it, or to do it to move them to a better solution. I'll take another one. Just going through this long list of questions here. Yash is asking how much of satellite data is available on open basis on public domain and how much is privatized. So most of the companies working on remote sensing data, as far as we understand, are using publicly available data. If that answers your question. There are a lot of data which are private. There are a lot of data which are very high resolution, very high accuracy. The time lag is almost real time, but that is all for military purposes. And as you could understand, that data is, you know, available only to the authorities. I'll take a few more questions. Actually, this is, we are end of the sort of all these slides. So what we will do is we'll just take questions as it comes. We have about 10-15 more minutes. So keep your questions coming. So Ayush, I think I have already answered your question about how are we going to tell this information to the farmers. One of the things we are working on is building this network of farmers. We have harvesting farmer network. We are engaging with these farmers. So whichever farmer is onboarding today on the platform, and as they continue to onboard, we will leverage the data and try to help them guide into the right direction. But as I said, you know, it's a lot of efforts. We have a lot of farmers in India and across the world, and we would need a lot more entities who can leverage the data and customize it in a way farmer can adopt and execute on it. Arun is asking, are you mining the data directly from satellite or buying from third-party vendor? If it is from satellite, then a demo would be good. So I hope some of the demos we gave, Arun, was sufficient. The data coming from satellite is raw data. That's like a huge file coming in, which has tons of data. If you open the file, it's a black, you can't really see anything there. So what our team does is takes the raw file, which is several petabytes of data, and we process it depending on what index we want to work on, what is the end goal, whether it is a moisture we want to work on, whether it is a wheat we want to answer, find an answer to. We process it, and we have built this high performance computing engine where 20, 30,000 computers work in parallel when we press a button to process that data in like 3, 4, 5 days. So that's a huge computing effort. So people who have computing background would understand what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I would also, add on to this, Vijit. Uh, like you mentioned, like directly from satellite, and I would say when the satellite capture the data, it's been transferred to the processing units set up by the various space agencies. Let's say ISRO, uh, or I would say the example of ISRO. So there's ISRO capturing the data. Then they have their platforms where you can go, call the data, or some of it is in public domain where you can just directly call the data, and some of it is privatized, or like you have to, it's commercial, you have to pay for the data. So we get the data from the organizations, not directly from the satellite. So depending on our needs, if like we want the data every day, then it has different commercial value. Like, so it's all I would say it's from the organizations we get the data, who are responsible for capturing the data using satellites. So there are a number of players, like private players, they have private satellites monitoring our planet Earth every day. Yeah, I think next we can take the next question as well.
Okay, great, great. So somebody is asking, the digital platform developed by you is for pre-harvesting. What about post-harvest? So what satellite allows us to do is continuously monitor a piece of land, right? It could be 1 acre land, or it could be 1 million hectares, or whatever that might be. So, and we have ability to continuously monitor it. So from sowing to harvesting, yes, it's very clear that we could see the crop growing, 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 and somebody harvested. We have those numbers comes in, and which we publish. And an example is on the reports we have published live for free on our website under harvesting.co reports. But even for the post harvest, if we are, what we are doing is we are monitoring the farmland, and we know when the harvest has happened, we know how much area is not getting cropped right now, and that could possibly be used by different agencies, different farmers, to plan things better. Take our next question here. Kumar Jayant is asking, what is the smallest unit of land that can be assessed? See, technically we can, as I was mentioning, we can measure up to 30 centimeter of anything in the world. But when we process those, we have to take into account what is the ROI. Are you looking to figure out uh, the wheat monitoring? Of course, if we are doing wheat monitoring where millions of tons is getting produced, we don't need 30 centimeter data, and the cost of doing it is extremely high. Uh, so based on what is the goal and the output a stakeholder is looking, for example, if government wants to know how much is rice is getting produced in parts of Andhra Pradesh, then we would use different types of satellite, and we provide those results. There are more questions coming, so I'm just scrolling through this list here and see if we can pick a new someone new here. So Mr. Shankar is asking, which are the states you are now providing data? So we have published some data points on our website. We do work with many other organizations. We have capability to work and provide data for almost all organizations. That's what I could say in this public forum. I hope I was able to answer your question, Mr. Shankar. Ayush is asking, Your focus is on onboarding the horticulture farmers while data presented during the entire presentation is about agriculture. How do you plan to marry these two? That's a very good question, Ayush. We have been working on the satellite for a long time now, and we now have on the other side harvesting farmer network where we are onboarding these farmers and providing them a platform to market and sell. So as you could imagine, when we have these farmers working with us, we are getting information about where are G9 bananas in Chhattisgarh. What that allows us to do is to understand a lot more about the ground realities of that area. And when you combine that with the power of satellite, that's where the huge magic, magic happens. You could imagine, us being able to tell how many G9 banana crop acres are available across India as we start helping these farmers across.
And add on to this, once you know the crop, you can identify the clusters there. Okay, so this region is hotspot of bananas, so we can plan accordingly. It can be logistic, or you can how like cold storage units you want to set up. Let's say for any crop, I would not say banana, but let's say for potato. So we know the clusters, so we can plan our policies or any other infrastructure which require immediate support. So we can plan with this data.
Thank you, Sean. So
Mhm.
I'll take one more question here from Abhishek Anand. How does one capture satellite image and process it to the intelligence engine? So Ishan briefly covered, but let me try to explain it in a simpler word, hopefully. What happens is satellites are capturing data continuously around different parts of the world. That data gets transmitted to receivers of NASA or ISRO, whoever satellite organization we are working with. From there, we work, we download the data from their cloud computing systems or servers. So if we are, let's say, working on Punjab, we would download the data, the raw files, when I say data there, the raw files from the Punjab. And if we are doing a wheat calculation, we would process 6 month, 10 months data. Maybe we'll go several years in back as well, depending on what we are trying to solve. And then we process all that data, which is a part of intelligence engine. And then the output becomes this report we have published. Very soon, we will have a interactive dashboard as well. We have some stakeholders already leveraging it, and that's available for a fee to stakeholders to use it. Just scrolling through to find interesting questions. Shilpa again here, how do you go about having the data in an office in Delhi to putting in the hands of farmers? I believe I have answered this in some way. Our goal is to provide data which is closest to the ground truth reality. Once you have that data available on harvesting systems over an API or over a dashboard, then various stakeholders, this stakeholder could be a government making policies or a cold storage organization trying to figure out how much storage capacity they need, to an insurance company who is trying to figure out how much insurance claim they need to reimburse or disburse. All that would be required. What we are doing is we are making it easier for these organizations to get to the data. And from there, these organizations would need to leverage these data points to do what they do in their organization. Some of them would be providing direct advisory to the farmers using the data. Some of them would be writing insurance policies, and some of them would be giving loans, because this data would allow the lenders to better understand what may be the production this year for the farmer. Another question here from Achyut. Through this platform, can you see pests and diseases? So we don't see any pests and diseases per se. However, the data we are collecting can be used to infer these issues. So for example, let's say again, going to Punjab, or let's go to Chhattisgarh. We have been helping farmers in Chhattisgarh to sell their produce. We, by processing multi-year crop data, we know that that's how typically a pattern looks like when it comes to crop, this particular crop in this particular region, and we suddenly see a drop, and that drop is um, about, it's not a drop towards the end of the crop cycle. Let's say it happened in the mid cropping season. So each crop has a crop calendar. We know roughly, when you are sowing, this is the time in this region you sow a particular fruit or vegetable or another row crop. But we see sudden decline in the crop production data, that can be inferred that there is some event has happened. So when you relate that data for weather with weather, we could see, oh, maybe if we see from the weather hailstorm has happened in that area, we can infer that it's very likely a hailstorm outcome. Similarly, if we see, oh, there was no weather changes, there is nothing happened which is out of the blue, but we are seeing 30% drop in the area, that could possibly mean some sort of a pest and disease attack. So that's how we can infer as we build this system.
Yeah, I will. I would like to add on to this. As I mentioned, various indexes we have. You know, let's say the last year 18-19 crop was healthy and normal, and we are monitoring now, like in 1920. So we can compare those indexes, like today's indexes, with the previous, and if we see a dip in in current situation, then we can infer that no, there is something going on. It can be pest attack, it can be due to any other thing. Then if we bring in the soil moisture, and the soil moisture is healthy, then no, I mean, then there's another factor. So the ground situation really helps to infer the situation, combining satellite data and the ground truth data. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ishan. So a few more questions here I'll take. Aditya asking why state government is not using these data to find crop loss. Think and follow on. So I think it's a question more for the government than to us on why they are not using it. What we are trying to do as an organization is putting our word out there, and this webinar is part of that, that hey, here are the organization like us who who is able to process this data and make it readily available. So if you know the government officials, please do let them know that there's an organization like Harvesting and they should take a look into it. So I'll take a few more questions. We have several questions still unanswered. If I have not answered question, like I'm skipping the questions which I have already answered in some shape. Just going through this list. The parameters for harvesting farm score are same for every crop area and region. So, Mr. Satyajit, this is an evolving work we are doing. The point here we are trying to make is, if you have a score, think about a credit score. Again, the credit score, everybody uses it. It's also an evolving score. Every time, some time, the credit card companies do continue to evolve what goes into the score. Similar to that, we have a farm score where we have identified certain parameters, such as we know if the water is available to the farm, it's likely to be more successful. If the road is very well connected, transportations is available, if market is not very, very far, then likelihood of the farm is going to be a lot more, if for farm to succeed is a lot more. So these are some fundamental things, as you could imagine, can be used. And truth be told, a lot of people already know about it if you are in that part of the region. Like if you are, let's say, in Unnao in UP, and if you are in a village around there, you would know, hey, these farms are going to be more successful versus others. It's just something but the benefit of doing it at scale is then suddenly you can see the patterns. If you are an insurance company who is writing $1 billion insurance, entire India, then you need these kind of data points to make those decisions effectively. Similarly, if you are writing loans, what that means is, instead of, in theory, today, when a farmer needs to get a loan, a loan officer is supposed to go visit and see what may be the situation on the ground. And our hope is, by providing some of these data readily available, if we can reduce the process of 3-month approval or 6-month, if we can reduce it even to the half, then we would be able to, bring a positive change in the life of the farmer. So that's how we see how farm score can help. It's not a final result. It will continue to evolve forever, but that's what we are working towards. Let me answer another question here from Ravindranath. Is it possible to know availability of groundwater in a particular farm, particular area? That is, whether we can dig a bore well in a farm, whether we can dig it in northeast, etc. So bore well is a different entity and different action in its own. What satellites today can provide is, top layer moisture. So, and Ishan may know better than me here, but using satellite, when you see water, there are a lot of different water levels and varieties available in the ground. There's a water which is on the top layer. There are waters which are, on the ground level, and so on and so forth. So there are certain type of aquifers and things like that, which you use different technology. And for some other, if you're looking at soil moisture, when you call soil moisture, usually it's a top layer of data available, top layer of water available within, a couple of feet. That is remote, you can do using remotely sensed technology. But for borewell kind of situation, you need different systems to monitor and to figure out what is the ground table there, water table there.
Yeah, I would add on to this. There are certain satellites, like it's an ongoing research, I would say. There are certain satellites which use the gravity, Earth's gravity into consideration, and then they monitor, then they maybe correlate it with the groundwater level, like stuff, uh, and that's like groundwater monitoring is there. It's in ongoing research, but it's not at farm level. Like it's, I would say, the entire aquifer, or at a larger scale, but it's not yet efficient at farm level. Like if I would like to say that I want to dig a bowel at particular this point, I would not say that's possible or no, but it's an ongoing process, and satellites have been used to monitor the groundwater thing. But maybe soon we will get some results, or maybe that technology can be downscaled till farm level. That's a still in process research, I would say.
Great, thank you. So we are running out of time here, 3 minutes left. Maybe I can take one question. I'm trying to find one burning one, something different. Arvind is asking, I want to use the data of district-wise potato crop yield production in the country for next 1 year. Also from the history. What was the acreage this year? How can we get the same? So thank you so much. This is an interesting question, an important one. The way we operate, it is a lot of expense to create these reports, to build this supercomputing infrastructure and create these data points. So what we do is, typically, if there's an agency, an organization who is interested in identifying these data points, they can get in touch with us. Our email address is info @harvesting.co. I believe everybody has got that email through the webinar. You can write back to us and let us know what your requirements are, and then our team would figure out how we may be able to generate these reports for you. That's pretty much it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. I hope this was useful. Thank you, Ishan, for taking us through the remote sensing and how it works and what work we have been doing at Harvesting for several years. I would like to thank you all the attendees who were able to join. This video or webinar is recorded, and we will make it up online on our YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll publish the link on our various social media platform. If we have not been able to answer any questions, we would try to answer them over the email. If you still have any more questions, feel free to email us back at info@harvesting.co. Once again, thank you, everyone. We hope we were able to communicate and share some knowledge with you. If you have any questions, please get in touch. Thank you.